What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. I've got some news today that honestly caught me off guard in the best way possible. And if you're a Blue Jays fan who's been paying attention to what's happening in free agency, this is going to get you hyped. We're talking about a potential closer addition, and not just any closer, a guy who has absolutely tormented Toronto for years. So the idea of flipping the script and bringing him over to our side, yeah, that's the kind of move that changes everything. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss any updates as this offseason heats up. All right, let's get into it. The name we're talking about is Pete Fairbanks. And if you've been watching Blue Jays baseball for any meaningful amount of time, you know exactly who this guy is. He's the closer for the Tampa Bay Rays, and he has made life absolutely miserable for Toronto over the years. According to Ken Rosenthal, the Blue Jays have expressed serious interest in signing him this winter. And honestly, when you think about it, this makes perfect sense on multiple levels. Toronto has been in the market for bullpen help, specifically high leverage arms who can handle the pressure of late innings in tight games. They were reportedly in on Ryan Helsley before he signed with Baltimore. They kicked the tires on guys like Raisel Iglesias and Phil Maton. All of those names are off the board now. So the Blue Jays are staying in that tier just below the elite guys like Edwin Diaz, and Fairbanks is exactly the kind of target that fits what they're looking for. Now let's talk about what Fairbanks brings to the table, because this isn't just some random reliever. Last season, he racked up 27 saves with an ERA under 3. That's elite production. And if you look at his track record over the last 3 years, the consistency jumps out at you. In 2023, he posted a 2.58 ERA with 25 saves. The following year, his ERA ticked up slightly, but he still notched 23 saves. And then in 2025, he brought that ERA back down and stayed dominant. This is a guy who year after year delivers in high-pressure situations, and that's exactly what Toronto needs. Because let's be honest, walking into a season with World Series aspirations and having your closer sitting with an ERA in the 4.5 range, that's not going to cut it. Fairbanks immediately upgrades that spot and gives you options. Here's where it gets interesting. Is Fairbanks Edwin Diaz? No. Diaz is on another level, and if you can get him, you absolutely do it. But Diaz is also expected to command something like 18 to 20 million per year, maybe even more. He was already making 20 million annually on his last deal, so it's not unrealistic to think he could push for 25 million on the open market. That's a massive financial commitment, especially for a team that still wants to bring back guys like Jordan Romano and add other pieces to the bullpen. Fairbanks, on the other hand, is projected to land somewhere around 13 million per year on a 3-year deal. That's a lot more manageable. It's roughly in the same neighborhood as what Jeff Hoffman got. And for a reliever of Fairbanks' caliber, that's a contract you can absolutely live with. You're talking about 40 million total over 3 years. That's not cheap, but it's not franchise-altering money either. And it gives you financial flexibility to make other moves. Now, let's compare Fairbanks to Hoffman, because I think that's where this gets really fascinating. Both guys are right-handers who rely heavily on their fastball-slider combination. Hoffman's four-seamer sits around 97 miles per hour, and his slider is his wipeout pitch. The problem is Hoffman's fastball got hit hard last season, especially in high-leverage situations. We all remember what happened in the World Series. Fairbanks runs a similar profile. His fastball is a touch harder at 97.3, and his slider has a bigger velocity differential, which makes it even more deceptive. His four-seamer is typically his most effective pitch when he's on, and the slider backs it up as his put-away offering. So you're looking at two guys with similar arsenals, but Fairbanks has been more consistent over the last few years. And that doesn't mean Hoffman is done or that he can't bounce back, but it does mean that if you add Fairbanks, you create competition and depth in that closer role. And that brings me to something I've been thinking about for a while now. I really wish baseball would move away from the traditional closer role, unless you have someone like Edwin Diaz or Josh Hader who just completely commands the job. When you have a bullpen like Toronto's, where there's no single dominant arm that clearly stands above everyone else, why not go with a closer by committee approach? Deploy whoever's hot, whoever's rested, whoever has the best matchup in that particular game. If Fairbanks is dealing, he goes in the ninth. If Hoffman's been lights out, give him the ball. If someone else is rolling, use them. I get that saves are a traditional stat and people love them, but at the end of the day, I care more about getting outs in high leverage situations than I do about preserving one guy's save total. And if you have 2 or 3 arms capable of handling those moments, you use them strategically, not rigidly. Let's talk about what adding Fairbanks would actually do for the bullpen structure. If he signs, everyone else moves down a spot. Suddenly, you're not asking guys who should be pitching the 7th or 8th inning to close out games. You're deploying your best arms against the best hitters in the opposing lineup, and everyone else falls into more appropriate roles. That depth matters over 162 games. Injuries happen, guys slump, matchups get tricky. Having another elite level arm in the mix gives you flexibility and options that most teams just don't have. And the fact that you'd be taking him away from Tampa Bay, a team that's been a thorn in Toronto's side for years, makes it even sweeter. And speaking of Tampa Bay, let's look at how Fairbanks has performed against the rest of the AL East, because this is wild. Against Baltimore, he's been solid with a 2.55 ERA and a 1.05 WHIP. Against Boston, he's struggled a bit with a 4.03 ERA, but that's probably because he's had to face Rafael Devers in big spots, and Devers is a menace. Against the Yankees, he's been decent with a 3.33 ERA, but against Toronto, a 1.33 ERA over 27 innings with a whip just over 1. He has absolutely dominated the Blue Jays. So, yeah, if you can't beat him, bring him over to your side. That's exactly the kind of move that makes sense when you're trying to win a division as tough as the AL East. And here's the thing. Fairbanks isn't breaking the bank. He's not Edwin Diaz money, which means Toronto can still afford to go after other pieces. They can still bring back Romano if that makes sense. They can still add a quality lefty to the bullpen, which is something they desperately need. They can still explore adding another bat or upgrading the lineup. Getting Fairbanks doesn't lock you into financial paralysis. It's a smart, impactful move that addresses a clear need without blowing up your entire budget. And if you're walking into the season with Dylan Cease anchoring your rotation and Fairbanks locking down the late innings, you've got a legitimate foundation to compete for a championship. So where does this leave us? Toronto needs bullpen help. Fairbanks is one of the best available options who doesn't cost elite tier money. He's been consistently excellent. He dominates Toronto specifically, and he fits perfectly into what the Blue Jays are trying to build. If they can get this done, it's a huge win. It's not the flashiest move in the world, but it's the kind of smart, strategic addition that championship teams make. You address your weaknesses, you add proven talent, and you don't overpay to do it. That's how you build a roster that can survive October. All right, I want to hear from you. Should the Blue Jays go after Pete Fairbanks? Is he the right guy to anchor the bullpen, or would you rather see them spend more to land someone like Edwin Diaz? And if they do sign Fairbanks, how do you see them deploying him alongside Hoffman? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If you got something out of this breakdown, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you're always in the loop when news drops. Appreciate you watching. Catch you in the next one.